Welcome back, Bears fans, to another video on the island. Today we're just going to be reacting to all the draft picks on day 3 of the NFL draft. And I feel like it was kind of a mixed bag. It started out really well. So 5th round pick, first pick of the day, 151st overall. We picked Larry Borom out of Missouri, who he played tackle in college, but he'll most likely move to a guard because he has a little bit stiffer feet. Just doesn't really have the agility and the athleticism to play tackle in the NFL. But regardless, great pickup. Big, burly offensive lineman, strong initial hand contact, strong player, and just a really thick mass of a man. And you just hear some of the stats about him. I have them all right here because I couldn't remember them all. Lowest QB pressure among offensive tackles. Less than 1% of his snaps he had pressures. So that's absolutely amazing, especially in the SEC where you're playing top tier competition. Only Power 5 tackle with 50 plus snaps and not allow a QB pressure. Another amazing stat. So me saying that he can't play tackle in the NFL does not mean he is not a good offensive lineman. I just think he would have a lot more success moving to the inside position as opposed to dealing with faster, quicker, more athletic defensive ends. And he's a mauler. Just like Tevin Jenkins, he's a big mauling lineman, and I love this pick. 44 pass blocking snaps versus Alabama, no sacks, no hits, no pressure, or no hurries. And you love to hear that. I am a little bit suspicious because I couldn't really find stats about sacks allowed, so I don't know how many sacks he's actually allowed. So I'm seeing a lot about hurries, QB pressure, but it's obviously a great indicator for him not allowing a lot of pressure on his quarterback and protecting his quarterback, which is something we want and we love with our new shiny toy, Justin Fields. I give that an A plus pick by Ryan Pace. So first 3 picks by Pace are all A pluses. And going to our next pick in the 6th round, we traded back with Seattle, got the 250 overall pick, which happened really recently. This is probably like 10 minutes after the draft, so I don't really know exactly how I feel about it yet. We'll have to see how the players develop, but drafted Khalil Herbert out of Virginia Tech. He's an all-purpose back, guys. I mean, I heard he struggles a little bit catching out of the backfield. Haven't really watched too much film on him, mostly watched highlights. And he shows to have great vision. He can really hit the hole hard. He's 5'9", 210, so he's a stout running back that he can run the ball hard, put his shoulders down and, hit someone in their chin, or he can also beat you to the edge. I've seen him be able to bounce stuff out and has good acceleration, but I didn't really understand why we drafted a running back here. I thought you had Demetric Felton on the board out of UCLA, and still, looking at it right now, didn't really get a wide receiver till the next pick, which I'll get into that, but I felt like you could have doubled up on wide receiver here, especially with a guy like Demetric Felton. You had Shaka Toney still available. So I thought there were a few places that you could go other than that. And just wasn't really the biggest fan of that, especially since you have David Montgomery, you have Tariq Cohen, you have Damian Williams. I thought Artavis Pierce from Oregon State last year still showed some promise. You have Ryan Nall. So don't really like that pick whatsoever. But he seems like a good player, don't get me wrong. I think he is a good player. There's a difference between liking a pick and liking a player. And I think he will be somewhat successful and be able to translate. It has some really good vision, which is always something you want to see with your running backs. Going to our next round pick, we had Daz Newsome. I think it was the 228th overall pick in the 6th round. And I love this pick, guys. He 4.3840. Blazing speed, had a 4.31, but it was changed to a 4.38. Not really sure the reason why. The only thing that he has that I don't really like is he catches with his body. And if you watch most of his film or his highlights, everything's kind of in his chest. And it's not like Mooney, where he reminds me of Mooney with his speed and his route running, but he catches the ball a lot in his chest. And Mooney's always catching like this. Look at the Green Bay game last year, week 16. He goes up, snatches it, and brings it back. And Daz Newsome's not really that guy, but his playmaking, open field playmaking ability is off the charts, guys. I mean, intermediate routes, short routes, he's incredibly good at it. He can still go deep, as you can tell by his speed, and, you know, can just make people miss. It's not really too much to it. He's at least making one person miss every time he touches the ball and continuously gets yards after the catch. So I love this pick. I thought this was a great pick, and, you know, I really have no quarrels with it. He reminds me of Darnell Mooney, and I love that. So just wish the pick before he would have went with Demetri Felton, and now you have two really good wide receivers back to back. But going to the next pick, we got Thomas Graham out of Oregon. Correct me, Daz Newsome was picked at 224. Thomas Graham Jr. is taken at 228. Cornerback out of Oregon. I've heard a couple different things about this guy. I watched his senior day one-on-ones, and I watched a little bit of film. Shows to have really good coverage, short to intermediate areas, likes jumping on the routes, and shows ability to undercut routes and pick stuff off. I mean, you look at it, his stats, he has interceptions every year he's played, except for the one where he opted out. But 3, 3, and 2, that's pretty damn good. I mean, 8 turnovers in 3 years, that's not too bad, especially for a 6th-round pick. The only thing is, he consistently gets beat. I mean, you saw at least 5 times in Senior Bowl one-on-ones him getting beat over the top, and you just can't have that in the NFL. You're playing wide receivers. You're going to tell me if you bite on Devontae Adams, he's not gone? Justin Jefferson, gone? You can't get beat over the top in the NFL, and that's something that consistently happens. So I think he'll be a much better zone corner than a man corner. He can see the play, try to keep things in front of him, come up and jump on routes, pick stuff off. But man-to-man, I don't trust him on an island whatsoever. But did lead the country in pass breakups in 2018, I believe, so that's pretty impressive. Our final pick of the day was Chris Tonga out of BYU, and this is also one I'm a little bit mixed feelings about. At first, I was kind of like, why the hell are we drafting a nose tackle? Like, try to get another wide receiver. Don't reach for a corner, obviously. Pick best player available, which after watching his film, I was a little bit more convinced that he was potentially the best player available. He's 6'4", 320, shows incredibly good athleticism, stout run-stuffing lineman. He'll be able to stuff gaps, stuff run plays, and shows pretty good get-off. I mean, when he gets moving in the open field for a guy that big, he's pretty damn athletic. And if you're already a run-stuffing type of lineman, you're big and stout. Akeem Hicks is 6'5", 330, so he's not too far off from him. Take that with what you may, but he's not anywhere near developed to be a starting defensive lineman in the NFL. I mean, he is just incredibly raw. That's the biggest thing. He doesn't really have a lot of moves, doesn't have a lot of good hand movement, kind of just comes off the ball recklessly, I've heard. He's a very raw prospect, but he is a prospect that shows really projectable traits such as size and athleticism. And he does have NFL play strength, I believe. So with that, we had a really good draft. I won't say pretty good, I'll say really good. Because the first couple rounds, obviously A+ moves. You can't really argue with those. And then once you get to our final 4 picks, then it's kind of like wishy-washy. Khalil Herbert, I didn't really think we needed a running back. Better players available. Love Daz Newsome. Thomas Graham is going to be kind of dependent on scheme. And if we can develop Chris Tonga, I think he could be a really good rotational piece. Maybe a potential starter. Who knows? So putting all that together, I would give the Bears an A+ for this draft. I think they did incredibly well. There's only 2 players that I have somewhat of a quarrel with. And with Chris Tonga, I was going to have it an A because I wasn't really sure about him. But after watching a little bit, seems like he's a pretty good player. People like him. He shows good projectable traits. And good value pick for $250 overall. So it was a really good draft for us. Ryan Pace could have potentially just extended himself another year. Do I necessarily want that? We'll see how this season plays out. Don't start saying extend Ryan Pace, extend Matt Nagy, because they drafted some good players who appear to be pretty good on paper. You never know with these guys. The draft is a crapshoot. The only one who I'm really, really sure about is probably Justin Fields, obviously. Tevin Jenkins, I mean, the more you go down, the lesser the likely is that you trust them. But so essentially how it is. Justin Fields, Tevin Jenkins, Larry Borom. But I'm just saying you never know. And I think as of right now on paper, it's been really good. But don't get over the top saying you want to extend these people because 3 days, you like what you saw on these players' highlight tapes. Let's see how they do this year. Let's see how the year goes for the Bears. We don't even know what's going to happen with our quarterback at this moment. I mean, he could be or Justin Fields could be starting by week 3. Justin Fields could beat out Andy Dalton. They could be honest and say, Andy Dalton, you're going to play all 16 games. They could get to a position where they're almost in the playoffs, and they will say, you know what, we think we have a better chance with Justin. It's all up in the air right now. But great overall draft at this moment in time. Excited to see these players develop and see how they can incorporate themselves into the Bears 2021 team and hopefully their playoff hopes. But that being said, thank you all for tuning in for not just this video, but the past couple days. A lot of draft content, a lot of news with the Bears, and appreciate all you guys watching and just giving these videos a view. With that, y'all have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bear down and deuce!